Cooper, and I'm joined today by Scott. Wait for
Howdy.
Scott. Sean and Robert. Say hi, Rob. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello.
All right. All these guys I've known for nearly 30 years, and they're all artists, they're all geeks, and maybe most importantly, are all my Ranking Studios buddies. About 25 years ago, we were part of one project that, along with another bunch of people, created Rough Cut issues 1 and 2, and then later published a pinup comic called Bad Girls. Is there anything that you guys would like to add to that story?
I mean, that's kind of the story. Ranking Studios was, designed to put out a pinup book, make money off the pinup book to publish further stories. And as you guys all well know, where we thought we'd sell a lot of books locally, the comic store that we were going to go through, and we were probably the most popular at, had some troubles at the time, and we didn't get our big, party that we thought we were going to get. So
this is deep knowledge.
Yeah, I mean it is. So yeah, it was a great time spent in mini Denny's or over at Sean's apartment eating some pizza shuttle.
Right.
And it was four guys who needed each other, and we just had a great time creating.
I agree with all that. Does anyone else have anything to say about Ranking right now?
I think that pretty much summed it all up.
We were pretty much comic book rock stars, right?
For a short time.
We thought we were comic book rock stars.
We did think that. We thought that at the time. Hey, look, we got back in the day. We had free passes to go out to San Diego Comic Con, and we got to hang with the big boys out there and girls.
We had professional badges, not for one con,
we did,
but for 2 cons.
We did.
That was worth the price of publishing that book alone.
It absolutely was.
And
that was a blast.
Back when it was San Diego Comic Con, where it was mainly comics and not so media driven and movies. I mean, I'm sure it's better off the way it is today, but I'm glad we got to go when we did.
It's a much bigger deal now, that's for sure. But it was a blast back then, let's be honest.
Oh,
and
we
did get to rub elbows with some very, very cool people.
For sure.
Not just in San Diego, but also elsewhere.
Was it me and you, Dirk, or was it me and Sean, or was it all 4 of us that we went out to catch the bus to go to back to our hotel from the San Diego Comic Con, and there was Kevin Smith, Jay Muse standing right next to each other.
I remember that. I was there.
Kevin Smith was smoking, and Jason Mewes was in his face, just like in Clerks.
They were absolutely their characters in real life.
And nobody was bugging them.
No.
And they were just there by themselves. And we looked at the bus, and I go, holy moly, look at these dudes. They're just like they are in their characters.
Yeah.
This was right after Chasing Amy. So
that's true.
And we went through their line and talked to those guys, too. So, I mean, it was great.
I got to meet Will Eisner and Ray Harryhausen and Stan Lee and a bunch of really cool people. And I know that Sean has some interesting stories about hanging out with some Image guys.
Oh.
We don't have to go in that right now. We probably should get the deal going, but there's nothing wrong with mentioning that during the show here. All of these stories or questions that we're going to be talking about today were shared on the Taskforce Geek Quora space. That's the origin of this broadcast. You can follow the space in the future to see what we're going to be talking about potentially. If you're interested in that, there's the link to it. It's Quora.com, Q Taskforce Geek, so you can follow all of that on there. Let's see. So now we're going to get into the questions. And to start off with, we're going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe new release dates. So with Black Widow being moved back to November 6th, 2020, so it's been moved back about, 6 or 7 months. Everything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and on Disney Plus has been scooched back a little bit. So my question to everyone is, do you think this is going to hurt the MCU or help it? And I'm going to go to Scott first.
I think no matter what comes out, when we finally get to come out of our houses, people are going to go see in droves. I don't think this hurts. I don't think this hurts at all. I really think, I mean, as much as us nerds like to complain about, like, oh, Avengers Endgame maybe didn't end like we wanted to, or didn't go the direction we wanted to, or this movie was not so great, and Iron Man 2 sucked. They pulled off something amazing if you look at it from the fact that, what is it, 23 movies telling one big story that a lot of us fans have to really nitpick to be kind of upset about it. I mean, so I've bitched and moaned about certain things of Endgame and that, but really they pulled it off well, and they're going to pull off the other ones too. I truly believe that.
Rob, do you think this is going to hurt or help the MCU?
I don't think it's much of a difference. I mean, I think it will maybe make some people, maybe they'll kind of forget, but I don't think most people are going to forget per se. I think there's going to be certain things going to happen, and I think they're just going to, because I think everything is stopped, and I think that's what's going to cause people to just still approach it, and it did happen at a good time. It would have been worse something like this happened 6 months before Infinity War was released. Then it might have made things a lot more difficult.
Right.
But I think that we're kind of already at that break point. I mean, obviously, by the little odds and ends, but if the most, it's good that it happened when it did, as far as it didn't break momentum. But it is going to be weird that a lot of things that I was thinking, ooh, looking forward to that. Well, now that's going to down, like things like Guardians of the Galaxy, things of that nature, which are already further down the line. They're going to go even further down. So it's a little weird.
Right. Sean, what do you think?
This can only help it. We were being bombarded with Marvel movies. Boom, 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 boom. Everybody needs to take a breath. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to take it, this is going to give us that breath that we needed, so that whenever they do start back up, we're going to be like, oh, wow, I remember this world. I love this world. Even though everybody owns every Blu-ray, it's still the whole going to the theater and being in the crowd and joining everybody to cheer whenever Captain America grabs Thor's hammer and beats the shit out of people. So I mean, it's really, this is a positive. This is going to help in the long run.
Do I sense some maybe superhero fatigue in your voice, Sean? Because I have heard other people say that they're kind of tired of superhero movies, and I think all this coronavirus stuff will give people that pause that you were talking about, Sean.
Personally, I've never been a huge fan of superheroes. I was always more drawn to science fiction. I was more drawn to the horror comics and obviously horror movies, as all of you know well. So that part of it, how do I want to put this? The Captain America comics, I never cared for. I never got into Captain America. The Captain America movies, I loved the Captain America movies.
Sure.
And so as far as fatigue, not necessarily. I don't feel a fatigue from all of the movies, but as a general populace, you hear a lot of people, like you say, nitpicking little things here and there, that everybody was suddenly kind of normalized to superhero films. So it wasn't the spectacle that it was whenever it first started. Whenever Iron Man first came out, everybody was like, holy crap.
That's because Iron Man was a game changer.
Exactly. Nothing like that had ever happened before. Even though we had other superhero films, nothing like that had happened before. So whenever that hit, everybody was like, okay, we can do this. We can make these superheroes popular in film. And I think, again, like you say, everybody's nitpicking because everybody's used to it. So by giving them a breath, they can feel that sense of awe again whenever they do start hitting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this can only help the MCU, to be honest, from a couple different angles. It's hard to top Endgame. You're not going to top Endgame for the next. So what this does is it gives a moment to kind of everyone to catch their breath. You know, they work on these films up to the very last moment. It can only help Black Widow to take another 6 months off because they can do some reshoots, or they can edit stuff, or they can, you know, workshop it and show it to some people. So I think that Black Widow will benefit from this, and I think everything further down the line will also benefit from just having a little bit of time to refine it, and also for the public, for them to be able to, you know, take a breath. Right now, people are definitely thinking about something else. So, you know, let them do their thing. And, you know, I think in the long run, this is probably going to make people, you know, crave that next MCU movie, and maybe get pretty excited about what's going to be happening on Disney Plus too. Mm-hmm. So in that vein, what are you most excited about that's coming up? I mean, as far as either the movies or you know, anything that's, you know, any of the Disney Plus MCU series that are coming up? And for that, I will go to Scott first.
You went to the rotten egg of the group, probably.
Well, that's all right. That's okay.
No, 20 years ago or so, I would have, and back when we were in college and stuff, I would have been all over reading articles and spoilers on, you know, going to the bookstore and finding the movie adaptation and looking in the back to get spoilers on movies and stuff like that. I've enjoyed movies a lot more since I stopped doing that. I almost don't want to see anything anymore, because if it's a superhero movie, I'm going to go see it anyway. So I don't really want to see a trailer. I mean, I will, but I don't have to.
I'm the same way. I'm exactly the same way. I don't want to.
And you were back then, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I don't ever want to see anything on a movie before I go see it.
So I'm kind of at the age in life where I've seen it all before in some form or fashion. So it's kind of nice to be surprised. So I'm trying to just do that with all these Marvel movies. You know, I don't care for the character Doctor Strange, but the Doctor Strange movie was awesome. The Eternals, they've never been my thing, you know, in the comics or anything. But I'm sure it will be fine, and then we'll find myself reading more Eternal comics and stuff. So, as for Disney Plus, I might be one of the few people on the planet that doesn't have it yet, and I just don't watch a lot of TV at home. I just don't. I'm one of those weird people that I do waste my time in other ways. So I'm not saying I'm better than you if you watch TV. I probably am missing out on a lot of really cool things, but it's hard for me just to sit still.
Right. Sean, what do you think, man?
What was the question?
What is there something that's coming up in the MCU that you're excited about, whether it's one of the movies or the television shows?
Well, actually, I'm looking forward to all of it. The stuff on Disney Plus. I'm looking forward to, especially the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Those were cinematically, those were the standouts for me. The Winter Soldier movie for me is by far one of the best movies that they produced. It was a fantastic story, obviously, and it was one of those rare situations where they didn't try to write a story around a superhero. They just placed a superhero in a good movie, and that was that was why that was my favorite. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how they expand those characters and whatnot.
Yeah, cool. Rob, what do you think, man?
I'm sorry. What do I? Again, yeah, you broke up there for a second.
That's all right. What are you excited about that's coming up in the MCU, whether it's on television or in the films? Or are you excited?
Yeah, as far as the Disney stuff goes, I don't know if I'm super excited about it. I'm almost gonna have to. I'm almost on a wait and see mode because I think it's something I would like to get into, but I'm not falling over backwards too. It's almost like I almost kind of want to hear what people are thinking. As a creative person who's trying to do work, I try not to get involved too heavily in TV shows and things of that nature because it can be a real drain on your time. And so I have to kind of hear that something is really good for me to want to jump in and want to go, okay, I'll give that a try. So it's going to be weird trying to balance that with the movies for me.
Right. Cool. For me, I've got three things that I'm looking forward to. I really am interested in the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think that has the potential to be pretty cool.
Right.
They lost their director on that. I hate that. But they've recovered many times from losing their directors, and Marvel movies. I'm going to take some heat for this. Are usually not very artistic. They are kind of what they are, and so sometimes these directors with an artistic vision want to do something that's not going to fit within the greater whole. And I trust Kevin Feige, so I'm fine with whatever it is they're going to come up with. And supposedly that's going to be kind of a horror movie, which I think is going to be interesting. And I like Doctor Strange quite a bit, so I'm looking forward to that. Also, Thor: Love and Thunder. If it's anything like the last movie, I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm always interested in anything that's Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're probably going to have another one of those, maybe another 2 or 3 years down the road. And I'm pretty excited about that. So we'll see. For those of you who are watching live, I'm broadcasting this live on Facebook. If you are interested in putting up a comment or giving a question to the group, if it's a good one, then I'll post it on here and we'll all take a shot at whatever you want to say. And so anyway, don't worry about putting a comment on there. We want to hear from you. All right. So for our next question, our next subject, and again, this is stuff that was placed on the Quora Space Taskforce Geek. AMC theaters may not reopen in June. Deadline reports that S&P Global said the world's largest exhibitor, AMC Entertainment, risks running out of cash by midsummer, and the ratings agency doesn't think movie theaters will reopen in June. A prediction AMC CEO Adam Aron made on CNBC this week. He said, "We expect AMC Entertainment theaters will remain closed beyond June due to the impact of the global coronavirus pandemic. We do not believe AMC has sufficient sources of liquidity to cover its expected negative cash flows past midsummer, and we believe the company will likely breach." So, guys, what do you think about whether AMC will open or not? What's your opinion on all of that? And for that, I'm going to go to Sean first.
Obviously, this whole virus thing is devastating to many markets, my own included.
Right.
So it's hard to tell how anybody's going to recover whenever things actually do start getting back to normal. But this is definitely going to be a post-virus world. Things are definitely going to be a bit different. People might be a little hesitant to sit in such a small seat right next to a perfect stranger. And with all of that in mind, AMC, I think AMC will survive. I don't know to what extent. Like all of the movie theaters around us are shut down. Some of the smaller, more locally managed, I think will be okay. They won't be great, but they'll be okay. Some of the larger franchises, I think some of those just because of the way corporate business is, some of those are going to be hit even worse as the corporations try to cut some of the fat to recoup some of their losses.
Yeah. Rob, what do you think? Rob, that's to you. Do you think AMC?
Well, I just think that AMC is going to be. I don't know that they're going to. The way I put it. I haven't been a big fan of AMC for a while, and mostly because I just feel like their price is a little too high, what they give you, and those type of things, and there's not enough service, and there's a lot of problems, and I think it's interesting that they were operating on such a low margin for liquidity. Now, one thing I did notice is they did say they were anticipating that if it takes until June or July, obviously that it gets back sooner, but I will be interesting that if they do go out, what's going to replace it, because you have a lot of empty, big, large movie theaters, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these other small, try to jump in and fill the void. But it is amazing to think that, literally one of the largest theater chains there can't, and not a lot of businesses can't stay shut down for 2 months and still be okay. But it is fascinating to see that they are this close to the margin of it. But I do think something will fill the gap. You'll have other theaters fill up, and I believe. So.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think, man?
I think there's going to be a lot of businesses and things that we enjoy that are it's going to be a new world, I think, after this settles, because a lot of your mom and pop comic stores are going down. I mean, there's artists doing, I think Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld are a couple of them that are like doing auctions to try to save some of these comic shops and stuff like that. Why not movie theaters? Yeah, why not movie theaters too? I mean, if they're run bad to begin with, so they, just like us, if we don't have enough money in savings, we're not going to survive this maybe. So, I mean, same with them. And also, I mean, this could, I know nobody's saying this yet, but this could be ushering in we're going to release a movie on Friday. Right. You can watch the new Star Wars movie on your couch through on demand or something. Because today, Trolls World Tour, which we know is not going to make a lot of money in the theaters anyways, except for families with small kids, they did that. They're the only ones that I know of that's been brave enough to say, we're still going to come out with our movie. Why not? Let's see. And if that is successful, why not somebody else try something? Because people are bored sitting at home and they want new content. So maybe they'll try a Western for the first time or whatever, because it's new and fresh.
Right. The theaters and the movie production studios have been fighting over the release window for a very long time. And if you remember maybe 20, 30 years ago, when they released a movie, then you had to wait, 6-8 months or something before they released it on VHS or whatever. And, since then that release window has been getting tighter and tighter. I think
feels
now,
like weeks.
In some cases it almost is. And I know that some independent producers have been doing a concurrent release where they will, because look, when you promote a movie, everyone gets excited about it, and hopefully they get you to go to the theater, but then they have to put some more promotion out in 3 months to get you excited about buying a Blu-ray or renting it, streaming it. If they did the whole thing all at once, then all of their promotion budget is front loaded, and they don't have to worry about doing it twice. And people who are really excited about it but don't want to go to the movie theater can have the option of streaming that thing at home. Right. They've been wanting to do this for a long time, and theaters just lost their leverage because theaters are not giving the movie studios any money at all right now.
Right.
So I think this is going to change a lot. I think that the multiplexes where you have 26 theaters in a huge complex, I think that's going away, and I think that movie theaters are going to get smaller. And I think that the experience is going to get more intimate, and people who are very look, going to theater was always problematic with the cost of how much, like popcorn and Coke, and having little kids kick the back of your seat, or people who were on cell phones during the course of the theater run. And honestly, Sean's television is just as good as going to see the theater now. And a lot of people have pretty good home theaters.
While I agree with that, I don't want theaters to go away.
I don't either.
I'm telling you, if movies just came out on in demand or whatever, I almost never watch anything, because I feel like I'm sitting at home versus a spectacle of going out to do something. I could go watch movies at the theater almost every day. I do not want to rent movies or sit around at home. You guys know this. We were college roommates.
Yeah.
I don't like to sit around and watch, I don't want to sit around and watch 4 movies in a row. But if you want to go to the theater 4 times a week, let's go do it.
I don't think theaters will ever go out of business. It's a lot like books. Everybody, no one's going to read a book because of radio dramas. No one's going to listen to radio dramas now that we have the television. I have a stack of audio books I listen to, dear God, all the time.
Are those on cassette?
No. No, although I do have several on CD. But I don't think the theater will ever go away.
I don't either.
I think that there will be adjustments. I think that there will be, again, like I said before, we're going to have a post-virus world, and that world is going to be, condensed. It's going to be like you say, there. What was it? Bloodshot, I believe, was the first movie that was already in theaters, but the studio decided, you know what, everybody's stuck at home. We're going to release that on demand, and I don't know what the numbers were. I'd actually like to see the numbers, but there's that experience. It's not just
it made about 8 million in that first week.
All right.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I didn't even know it did that. See, so I mean, here's an opportunity too. If you think about it, we start living our lives semi as normal as we can. Maybe this is good for the theaters. Maybe they'll try some things to get my butt in there and take my money and justify me spending $6 on a soda.
But I think more what you're going to get is you're going to get the studio who is absorbing 90% of that sales, of that ticket sales from the theater. You're going to get them saying, okay, our movies on demand are not selling like they were in the theaters. People want to go out. People want it as part of part of an experience. So they're going to have to start making cuts. They're going to have to start making changes to encourage the theaters to afford their movies and to play them. So, well, I don't know. It's really kind of a tough call at this point because everything's so up in the air. But I think AMC will survive. Again, I think their theaters, they're going to trim a bit of the fat. They're going to reduce the number of theaters that they have overall over the entire country and whatnot. But I think they'll be fine. We might get a few dollar movies out of this. Who knows?
Well, we might get some things like some animation stuff from Japan, like a Dragon Ball Z movie or something over here for a couple of weeks, which we maybe not have gotten because they have to pump out the latest Disney movie or something. So
exactly. So
it might try them to try different things.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. The theaters. There's a theater near us that changed management, and as soon as they did, they started bringing in a bunch of anime movies and a bunch of independent movies and a bunch of stuff that.
It keeps people from being stagnant, which is a big word for me. So
exactly.
All right. Well, kind of in that vein, Marvel Comics is pausing work, and Diamond Comics is having some trouble too. So Marvel Entertainment is immediately pausing work, what they call pausing work on, and the release of approximately 1/3 of its May and June comic book issues. A spokesman confirmed for Newsarama. Marvel's representative said 15 to 20% of its solicited titles would be affected, as some of them are twice monthly in May and June. The decision to pause work on the affected titles, according to the spokesperson, is to help spread the amount of publishing product over the coming weeks and months. Asked when the publisher intends to resume publishing the issues not affected by the pause, the Marvel spokesperson said, as soon as more information is available, we will outline our longer-term plans. Also, Newsarama released an official statement from Diamond Comics Distribution that said, we are hearing from thousands of retailers that they can no longer service their customers as they have in the past, many of them forced to close by government action or resort to in-person or curbside delivery. Even those still open are seeing reduced foot traffic in most cases, a situation that seems likely to worsen with time. Our publishing partners are also faced with numerous issues in their supply chain, working with creators, printers, and increasing uncertainty when it comes to the production and delivery of products for us to distribute. Our freight networks are feeling the strain and are already experiencing delays, while our distribution centers in New York, California, and Pennsylvania were all closed last week. Product distribution by Diamond and slated for an on-sale date of April 1st or later will not be shipped to retailers until further notice. So, first off, what I want to do is just throw this to whoever wants to take it. What are your memories? I mean, we published comics through Diamond Comics many years ago. What's your memories of that? Either one of you can take that. We lost Rob.
Yeah, we lost Rob. I just talked to him, and he's having a issue with his camera and stuff.
All right.
So he's probably not coming back this time, but
okay, that's cool.
You might see future Rob.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry. Your question?
Yeah, go ahead. What I wanted to do is just throw it to you guys and talk about kind of, because most people probably don't even know or care about what Diamond Distribution is. What was your memory of Diamond 25 years ago when we were dealing with those guys?
Well, I mean,
and explain what Diamond is.
Yeah, for those
comics.
that don't know, for those don't know, let's say you want cereal and it's at Walmart. Well, it has to come from somewhere else, and that person sells it to Walmart, who gets it to Walmart, and then Walmart puts it on the shelf. Diamond Distributors is like anymore. They're the only place to get your comics. So all these comic companies, you have to solicit to Diamond pretty much to kind of survive at the comic stores. Now there's online comics and stuff like that who self-publish, but you really have to suck the teat of Diamond because you want to be in that catalog. And it's a giant catalog that comes out and it shows you product from 4 months from now. And is it 4 months from now, 2 months from now? Anyways, it's way ahead.
It might be 6 months from now.
You can go through this giant catalog. I mean,
when you solicited it 6 months, it's probably 3 months, 2 or 3 months in the future.
Right. I mean, if you're my age, when we used to get the Sears Christmas catalog, you had everything in there, right? You got excited and you went through there hours upon hours. You can do that monthly with Diamond Comics. And for example, this is not true most of the time. You think you do a great thing by walking into your comic store. You buy 10 books at $3.99 each, and you think, well, I just gave the comic store $40. They should be happy for me. Well, what you don't know is they paid about half or 55 to 60% for those comics. So they really only made about $18 to $17 from you, depending on who it's from and everything else. So that's just how it works. Diamond buys the comics from Marvel, and then Diamond sells the comics to comic stores. Right. And that's the kind of the process in a quick, simplified nutshell. But that's where you get your geek comic shirts. Some Diamond and Alliance Games are pretty much the same company, but different distributing companies. Right. That one is just on like board games and dice games and stuff like that, which I play a lot of. So, yeah, this affects everything, and they're not going to start running again until these people start publishing stuff. Now, what I hope happens, I hope this allows what I hate more than anything, reading like let's say a big comic book crossover that Marvel promises is going to be the greatest thing ever, like the upcoming Empire storyline that they're doing. And then you read like 4 issues, you love the artist, you love the writer, and then all of a sudden you have a different artist.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
they can't keep up. So I'm hoping this pause we'll see some complete storylines for some of these artists. And I'm not complaining because it's hard to draw a comic and stay focused on that. But man,
Yeah,
I
it
hope
is.
we get to see some really complete, great storylines come out from this kind of pause in the industry. So I mean, they had to pause everything. They couldn't. I mean, people
Sure.
weren't going to they weren't printing the comics, one, because they didn't want to be there and catch the corona. And so then they can't send them to the distributor. And then they can't send them to the stores. And stores can't buy all these comics if, even with your pickup service, like I'm on a curbside, people aren't buying enough stuff. The shops that are doing that are making just enough money to keep the lights on. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have experience. I have a friend who owns a shop.
Sure.
And I hear all about the details. So,
Yeah. I mean, I'll throw this to the game. And by the way, Scott, you did a great job of summing up Diamond Distributors. And
thank you.
I mean, seriously, you told it from the perspective of everyone there. It's good. And you have to realize that Diamond is the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, they're not the only distributor, but they're kind of they're by far the biggest.
Well, back in the day, wasn't there? There's Diamond.
Yeah, and there
what
was another
the other
one.
Company?
I
Was it
can't.
American Comics.
I can't remember the name of it. There were 2 major publishers, and then when the market collapsed in the late 90s, they died. Let's see. Yeah, I can't remember the name of the other one. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's good. We do have the internet. We can check on that. But yeah, there used to be 2 major distributors, but now it's basically Diamond. They have some other smaller distributors, but we're literally talking about maybe Diamond having 80% of the market. So, I mean, Diamond saying that they're not going to distribute comics anymore means that comics are just, they're done for the time being. And also something we didn't talk about, Diamond, after they released this announcement, they said they were not going to be paying comic book companies fully for the amount of money that they owed them until August. So they're putting off their payments for 5 or 6 months. And I mean, if you're Marvel or DC, you probably have a bigger company. I mean, with DC they have Warner Brothers, and with or I guess it's AT&T now actually, and with Marvel it's Disney. So they may not have to worry so much about not getting paid because they've got a much bigger entity that can kind of cover them. But smaller companies like Dark Horse or Image or certainly independent people are going to be destroyed by the fact that they're not being paid until August for their production.
Sure.
So
I found real quick, Kevin.
Sure. Go ahead, man.
So it was Diamond Comics and Capital City Comics. Was the big distributors in the 90s.
Yep.
Then do you guys remember, Dirk, were you still at the comic shop when Heroes World came into the direct Marvel distributor? Remember when Marvel broke off for a little bit?
Yes,
They tried to control their own thing and say, you have to go exclusive through us and you have to order so many copies and we're going to strong arm you. And then they went bankrupt a few years later because I believe they were hurting for money then and we just didn't know it. And then
Marvel was in very, very, very bad shape in the late 90s, which is why they made the terrible, terrible decisions on the movie rights that they're still paying for right now with Sony with Spider-Man and Fox with the X-Men and Fantastic Four and with all of the crazies. I mean, they still have some stuff tied up with Columbia with like maybe Namor or the reason why they can't do standalone Hulk movies without bowing to other people because they made such bad decisions because Marvel was dying in the late 90s. And so some of the problems that they're having right now are directly related to that. And it's interesting that you mentioned the distribution because they were doing anything they could to make some money back then.
Yeah. I figure eventually the mouse is gonna just throw so much
Absorb
money into
everyone.
this character that it won't matter. They'll just buy the company and everything else, not just the characters. So
Sean, we've talked a little bit about some of the rumors that happened before this with DC. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
But which
The rumors that DC is looking for either to stop producing comics
one
to
thing that I had heard, which I put no real value to this, being that I read it on the internet, and of course, everything that's on the internet is true, but
right.
I have to take this with a grain of salt that because of the poor performance of the publication wing of DC, and coincidentally the poor showing of which I don't really understand why they call it a poor showing, because every single DC movie has made money.
Yep.
I mean, they're not
Almost.
critically, they're not, fan favorites by any means, but they made money.
Right.
But all that aside, AT&T, see, in this particular story that I had read, AT&T apparently does not hold a whole lot of value for DC Comics, and so the rumor was that DC might be up for sale at some point, and
Right.
Holy crap, if the House of Mouse decided, Superman with mouse ears, I think this will be fun. And,
I don't want that to happen ever.
I
It
don't
will
either.
happen. It will happen, but
it won't.
I don't.
I don't see as much as the money issue is there. They talk about how DC Comics are losing money and whatnot, and AT&T corporate heads could honestly, I mean, what was it? Whenever they were creating the Green Lantern movie, they literally asked, how can we make the movie without the ring? It's like,
Well, I mean, going back to what you said about how Iron Man stood out, that's the first time that it felt like we handed, like, here's some ideas. Hollywood, what do you think about it? And it felt like the first time that Hollywood said, okay, instead of saying, well, can we make Iron Man, like, out of cloth? I mean, just,
Right.
something stupid.
Stupid stuff.
Just,
but see, that was also the first time that Marvel kept control of their property and said,
which was amazing and groundbreaking.
Absolutely.
It's changed superheroes forever.
like
Yeah.
Changed them forever.
Yeah.
Right, like I said before, I never read Captain America. Coincidentally, I still don't read Captain America, but that's neither here nor there. He was never a character that I really was a fan of. It's not that I disliked him. I liked him whenever he did crossovers and whatnot. I just never got into the character. But seeing the film adaptation of him, I was like, this is fantastic.
You also found him handsome.
Well, of course, but anyway, it was a great telling of that story in cinema, and they did an excellent job with it. I thought I would have loved to have seen Chris Evans punch Hitler in the face, as indicated on the cover, but it's okay. That's I'll take my small victories, but you had the stage play, but that's not what I'm talking about. Anyway, I don't see DC having the same the kind of foundation that Marvel has with their films, because DC is still kowtowing to the corporate overlords at AT&T are saying, I don't know, I'm not real sure, we'll think about it. Whereas Marvel, they're just like, Kevin, you make money, go, and that's what he does. He runs off and he makes movies, and
Right.
everybody loves them. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Since you're talking about the DC deal, it actually kind of rolls into my next subject here, which is something that's been rumored for a while, which may be like a unicorn or something, but the situation that's changing with streaming and maybe AT&T creating HBO Max has created a situation where maybe we might get a Zack Snyder cut of Justice League. So let me read this from Cheat Sheet, who says Justice League was released in 2017, and since then fans have been wondering if the Zack Snyder version of the film would ever come to light. The director has hinted that he's working on it, and now many are wondering if they'll get to see the Snyder cut of Justice League on Warner Brothers' upcoming streaming service, HBO Max. So, Scott, what do you think about that, man?
It's really weird you brought this up because I didn't hear about the Snyder cut until you told me we were going to do this and to research it.
Right, I got you.
The Justice League movie came on, I don't know, Sci-Fi Network or something about a week ago. And after touting that I never watch movies at home, it was on in the background.
We watched it too. We watched it the same time.
It could be Gal Gadot that kept me around because,
that's as good a reason as any.
If anybody wants to make you lick a screen, it's Gal Gadot. So, anyways, when she's beautiful. I mean, good Lord.
Absolutely.
Anyway, and such a perfect for a character. Anyways, I found myself when I watched it at the theater, I walked out, I had very low expectations, and I said, it wasn't too bad. And then when I was watching it on TV with the commercials and everything else, I actually found myself saying, I'm missing old Batman Ben Affleck, and I found myself enjoying.
Wait a minute.
And I really didn't like Batman Superman. I don't think I'd rewatch that, but I really didn't mind Justice League, even though I didn't really care for the resurrection of Superman and all that. Maybe it was just stuck in the house with the corona everywhere that I sat back and just enjoy. Instead of nitpicking, I enjoyed it. And I found myself really enjoying watching that movie again. And when you talked about this, I thought, hell, why not? I'll watch it even again. So, sure, I'm game.
Let me throw this out. We'll come back to this question in just a second. Who is the best live action Batman? Okay, go.
Live action Batman?
Live action Batman. Who's number one?
Oh man, you have to give it to Christian Bale, right? I mean, just for the trilogy alone.
I disagree.
I mean, if you're talking old Batman, I really, really liked Ben Affleck.
To me, Ben Affleck was absolute. See, to me, anybody can be in the cowl. Anybody can be in the cowl because you're not looking at.
That's true.
You're looking at a shape beating the heck out of bad guys. You don't need an actor as Batman. You need an actor as
Bruce Wayne. Well, then maybe it is Affleck.
Affleck, to me, Affleck was by far the best Bruce Wayne / Batman of any of the interpretations. Now, you can argue, who had the best story, who had the best director, so on and so forth. I'm still a little hinky on Zack Snyder's vision of the DC universe per se. I mean, there's some things that I think he went a little too far here and there, but overall, I liked his Superman. I extremely liked his Batman, and it saddened me that Ben Affleck had so many personal issues that in his mind kept him from continuing on, because I would have loved to have seen more.
My hope, Sean, is in about 10 years when he ages a little bit more that we get like a Dark Knight Returns.
Like a Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah, like a 55-year-old Ben Affleck,
Dude, honestly, I would be there for that. I think he would be, again, I think he would be fantastic.
So are we all in agreement on this?
Oh, yeah.
Ben Affleck by far is my favorite. By far is my favorite. Not just the actor, not just as Bruce Wayne, also as Batman, and also the interpretation of Batman. It's the first time that I've ever seen Batman kick the ass of everyone the way that he does it in the comics. People are shooting him in the head, and he's looking at him like, now you're really going to get it. He's picking people up and throwing them around. He's using his batarang as a weapon instead of like, a fun little ornament or something. It was the only Batman where Batman was really the way he is in the comics. He's scary. He's tough. And I totally buy Affleck as Bruce Wayne. And also, I mean, Ben Affleck is a tall guy. You can put him up against, Henry Cavill as Superman or something, and he stands toe to toe with him just like he does in the comics. I think by far that Affleck is the best Batman.
My favorite line in that movie is where somebody says, like, "So what's your superpower?" And he's like, "I'm rich."
I'm rich, yeah.
It's just like, well, yep.
Now,
I think it's.
If DC would have taken the approach and made Affleck their Iron Man and run with it in that fashion, obviously we would have, I believe, we would have had quite a bit more. And
I really think that was the original idea, was to kind of, because he did show up in Suicide Squad.
Right.
And he also showed up in Wonder Woman. So I think that they were trying to run that thread through those initial movies. And Zack Snyder's not going to get the credit for it, but he's also the guy who created everything about Aquaman that worked for that movie that finally broke $1 billion. He cast Jason Momoa. He managed to make an Aquaman that no one laughs at, that everyone thinks is cool. The situations, everything that was set up, you notice that he was one of the executive producers on the Aquaman movie. Everything that Snyder, and look, I get all of the criticisms of, the way that he portrayed Superman and Batman, and those are all completely valid. But for the most part, if anything, Zack Snyder made the mistake of deconstructing those characters when no one wanted to see deconstructed characters. They wanted to see them in their full glory. But what he was trying to do is to pull back on those characters and then work towards them being in their full glory by the time that you get to the first or second Justice League film. Unfortunately, they got truncated because of all of the bitching by the fans. I'm talking to you, you know who you are out there, who bitched about everything, and the somewhat lackluster box office that they got with those films. But if they could have just hung in there with Zack Snyder's vision, I think that by the time that they got to the second Justice League film, I think they would have had an amazing arc of films that told a complete comprehensive story. And I think that we would have arrived at the characters that everyone wanted there at the beginning, but they weren't there because of storytelling. They really wanted to start those characters at a certain point and evolve them toward, the characters that we knew by the end of that process.
If they do release a Snyder cut of the movie, I think it'll do well. I think people will tune into it, if for no other reason, just for the novelty of it. But
sure.
I think if you sit back, because it'll have to, they won't release it in theaters. It'll be on their streaming service, and it'll be on Blu-ray.
No.
And they would have to track, obviously, viewership on the stream, or new customers purchasing the stream around the time of its release, as well as the Blu-ray sales to really get a grasp of what the people want to see, as opposed to what the boardroom wants to see.
I think rewatching that movie kind of made me sad that was our attempt to get the storyline of Apocalypse and the New Gods, and
Yeah, that
the big bad villain of Darkseid, which everybody would have compared to Thanos. But I
Sure.
want to remind everybody, up until Jim Starlin brought Thanos back to life in, I believe, the either late 80s or early 90s, I mean, Thanos was running around the Marvel Universe, not looking for Infinity Gems necessarily. He had the Thanos copter and other really lame things.
right.
So
You're right.
he didn't become cool until Jim Starlin started writing Silver Surfer, brought him back, and then started the Infinity Gauntlet stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
so Darkseid, if you ever look him up, he's kind of what Thanos turned into. I mean, like, am I wrong in saying that?
No.
But
You-
I'll even take that a step further. The cinematic Thanos is very different than the comic book version of Thanos.
For sure.
I mean, the cinematic Thanos, you kind of understand. I mean,
Yeah.
you're like, all right, let's do this. Let's see how this works. Whereas with the Darkseid, you're constantly thinking, oh, he got to die. He
exactly.
Right.
can't be around. There's
Yeah.
nothing redeemable about that guy.
Right.
And so yeah, it saddens me too. I would love to have seen them fully flesh out Darkseid and bring that to the cinema, because I do think that would have cemented the DC universe.
For sure.
Fortunately, they have a TV series, or a line of TV series, that does a phenomenal job.
That are doing that. Yeah,
and
for sure.
the only thing I can think of is because, you know, they're telling smaller stories like comics. They're telling smaller stories which blend to an overarching story that is wonderful. Whereas with their movies, I know, let's take 10 years and let's put it into 2.5 hours.
Right.
No, that doesn't work.
What do you guys think is the state of the DC cinematic universe now? Do you think that it's in trouble, or do you think that that they've, with the success of Aquaman and Wonder Woman's going to be coming out here pretty soon, probably do pretty well? Do you think they're on the right track, or do you think that? I mean, what do you guys think?
I am hopeful, but I've got a bad feeling. I don't know why. I'm not right all that often, so don't quote me on anything. But it seems to me, and I've mentioned this before. I get this feeling that Aquaman is one and done, and that would break my heart, because I think Jason Momoa is fantastic. I think he's a fantastic actor, person. I think he's been given the short end of the stick on many a franchise, and I would love to see him actually get something that he can, propel his career even further and be that big action star. Gal Gadot, I think Wonder Woman, this upcoming Wonder Woman, I'm not hearing a lot of really good things about pre-screen.
Shut your mouth, Sean.
Shut your mouth. Just saying. So I'm afraid that that's going to be a reset. I've just got a bad feeling that it's going to, once they fill up whatever they've got in the works now, I think they're going to do a flashpoint, and they're going to reset everything, and we're not even going to associate the Ben Affleck Batman, because now we've got Robert Pattinson. We're not going to associate Aquaman. They're going to get Michael Phelps, and we're not going to.
Good God, I hope that's not the case.
We're not going to.
That is a nightmare.
Subway sandwiches a day. I'm Aquaman.
We're not, Henry Cavill, who says that he's up for more Superman movies. I think they're going to recast him. I think they're going to completely wipe the slate clean of the Snyder universe and they're gonna start something new and fresh. And I understand it. I'm not against it per se, but I do like these characters. I do like these actors, and I would love to see their representations continue on. I just don't feel it.
My answer to this is the same answer I've had probably 20 years ago or something. There's no excuse for not having good Batman or Superman products.
Man, you're right on that.
Every
Yep.
3 years. Every 3 years at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
very least.
Yeah.
You sign a guy, you have a guy for Superman for 3 movies, and then maybe you get rid of him like you do the James Bond actor. But
Right.
we've said this back when we were in college. There is
Absolutely.
no excuse because these are such iconic world characters. Now, back then we said it even more than like we said your big 3 was like Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man, or you know.
Right.
But there's no excuse. This is just it has to be some head honcho in a boardroom kiboshing this stuff. I mean, it's kind of sad, really. I mean, the best like thing that went, and I'm sure there's others because I don't have the DC network or anything like that. But I mean, we touted the Batman adventures in the 90s because we got good Batman for like what 6 years or something like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
It felt longer. It might have been shorter. I don't remember.
Right.
But it's what we were all craving for.
Right.
It was consistent. It was good. Even maybe when it was not so great, it was still good. And that's what we were dying for that. And then they took those same great creators, Paul Dini, and who's the other guy I'm thinking of? Anyways, Paul Dini was the big one. And they gave him Superman. And we had years of great Superman cartoons.
Yeah.
And we were like, why can't they do this for movies? Why?
Right.
You know,
sad.
the same situation is happening right now with. Have you watched the DC animated movies?
Some of the latest ones? Is that
Yeah, like direct to video or whatever they call it now.
I have, but not in the last few years, to be honest.
Some of those are really good. I mean,
Some of those are amazing.
They get those characters. They really like the Justice League Dark is a good example. I think the animation's terrible. I hate the animation in those damn things. But the storylines and the way that they portray those characters are really, really excellent. And you wonder you obviously have writers that are putting these things together. Why don't they grab those guys who understand those characters better than anyone and let them do this stuff in the films in the live action films so that you have that experience and the knowledge of the characters. And the same thing, and by the way, the same thing is happening with the Star Wars crowd, where you have what's his name, Dave Filoni, who did Clone Wars and has done several of the animated things, and they're finally kind of graduating him into the live action stuff with The Mandalorian. And why do they not hand over the Star Wars universe to that guy? Because he totally understands what it takes to make a good Star Wars product. He understands the characters. He understands the genre. He understands how to make stuff cool, Yeah. Why do they not, just because they're not doing the live action stuff doesn't mean that you can't, elevate them to the point of doing the live action product. I think.
I totally agree.
All right, I've got. We have about 3 or 4 more subjects, but we're kind of running out of time. I'm going to do one more subject for us, and that is, and hopefully you guys are as interested in this as I am. I may be the only person, but it looks like George Miller. Variety ran a story on what people are working on while they're kind of relaxing during the coronavirus issue. And one of the kind of off comments that Variety had on this is they said director George Miller, for instance, has been meeting with names including Anya Taylor-Joy for his Furiosa spinoff, which he hopes to start shooting in 2021. So, for those who do not know, Anna Taylor-Joy is one of the members of the New Mutants, which has still not that's a whole other subject. It still has not gained release. She also was one of the voices for the Dark Crystal, and she was in The Witch, which, if you've seen The Witch, that was a pretty cool movie, and she's a very interesting character. She's also considerably younger than Charlize Theron, so this movie would potentially be set maybe 20 years ago in the Mad Max universe. Again, I'll throw this to you guys, whoever wants to take it. What do you think about a Furiosa spinoff, and also how do you feel about, if you know this person and have an opinion on it, what do you think about the casting idea from George Miller?
I'm not familiar with the actress, but that doesn't say a lot because I'm not familiar with a lot of them. If you tell me more Mad Max, I'm all game. If you want to take a side character, I'm all game. I'm not one for prequels because while at the same time I know like the main character of a movie is not going to die or have harsh consequences, I know for sure. I mean, as soon as I heard about this, I'm like, okay, she's going to have her arms at least, and at some point
Right.
she's going to get one mutilated, and
Right.
and that we're going to get that story. But I don't mind it either. I mean, I enjoy the Mad Max stuff because like you kind of don't know. I mean, maybe after the first couple, I like the idea of that it's just a story. It's a story of Mad Max. That's what you get. You don't know if this happened when he was 32, 36, 45.
Yes.
I kind of like that idea of telling. I mean, a lot of times when I read like Conan comics and stuff like that, to me they're kind of evergreen, and I like that. You know,
They
I
are.
like the idea that here's an arc. Enjoy.
That's a good example too, because you're absolutely right. The Mad Max films there is very little continuity between these things, and I mean he almost reinvents the world every time that he does these things, and it's not even out of continuity that Tom Hardy is suddenly Mad Max. I mean, he's telling these things almost like someone who's sitting around a fire and telling these stories,
Exactly.
like each time that he tells these stories, they're a little bit different, or they're nuanced, and like each one kind of stands on its own. So you're absolutely right. If he tells a story from 20 years ago, it may not even have continuity with Fury Road, other than just having that character or that setting.
What you're talking about continuity, one of the things my mother she fell in love with Gerard Butler, and so I wanted to show her the movie 300. And I won't go too deeply into that, but in any case, the reason I bring that up is she kept asking me why are things like this, why is this so twisted here? Why are the elephants so gigantic? Why is this rhino? What do you mean they've never seen a, and she had all these questions. And I tried to lay it out as you are hearing the story as it's being told by the survivor Spartan. So
right.
They're being outlandish. They're being grandiose. They're trying to make this as boisterous as possible. And Mom's like, oh, okay. So she's starting to get it. And Miller's doing the same thing. He's taking this legend of this character Max, and he's just throwing, various stories. There is no continuity because who's telling the story? They're all just different interpretations of the Max character. Now, getting back to your question, doing a spin-off, doing a prequel, as it were, I'm with Scott. I'm not a big fan of prequels because you kind of already know how that dog leg ends. You already know she's, like you say, she's she's going to lose her arm in some fashion. She briefly told of her history, where she came from, how she came into the company of the not Proud Boys. What were they?
War Boys.
War Boys. That's it. Yeah, it's good.
We just watched this actually recently too.
I love that movie, man.
It was in the $5 bin, and I just got let go of my regular job because they were shutting down because of Corona. And I was like, well, Jennifer's never seen this movie, so it's time for her to see it at some point. I even let my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old watch it, and I was like, you need to see something that's crazy.
It's rated R, but I mean, and there's obviously some violence in it, but I think kids could, that age, I think kids could watch that.
Hearing you talk, Sean, I think the problem with prequels is, and honest question, guys, when did you see a prequel that made a character better?
Right.
I mean, the prequels almost hurt Darth Vader, right? Because we had this mystery about him. We had all this stuff, and it just.
It's a really good point.
I mean, was the Solo movie okay? Sure.
It was okay.
But I could have never seen that.
It didn't make it better.
Stories and tales of, this old scoundrel, this is this guy, and we used to run this. I didn't need to see him run around. No. I didn't need to see him play Sabacc. I'm just saying it didn't enhance anything.
Right, and that's what really bothers me about prequels is you bring up Solo, for example. Whenever we meet him in the cantina, he's this scoundrel. He's got this air of mystery. He's this kind of, even though Harrison Ford always hated the character, he had this kind of.
It's really funny that he hated it. He made
right.
I mean, without Harrison Ford, we wouldn't be.
Yeah. Well,
it's not the same.
I think what was it? Kurt Russell, I think, was up for the part, and that didn't anyway. So here he was, this character that he had this shady past. Did we need to know it? No one needed to know it. Whenever they announced that Solo was coming out, was there anybody that's like, oh man, finally I get the history of Solo? No, nobody cared. Nobody cared. The movie didn't do badly because it was a poor movie. I think it was a fine film. I think it did exactly what it was supposed to do. The reason the movie did bad is because no one wanted to see it. No one cared. It wasn't the story that anybody was interested in.
Well, and I thought Rogue One was going to be similar. Like, I wasn't as interested. But what they did is they took characters we'd never seen before. So we didn't know if somebody's going to live or die.
Absolutely.
And it was like intertwined in some of the best, like when we used to role play Star Wars stuff, we didn't interact with Luke and Han Solo and Chewbacca, but we might have ran into that one general in the background who came over and talked to our little squad that said, you need to go run supplies over here.
Right.
And we might have heard the name General Solo or General Skywalker, but we didn't mess with those guys.
Right.
Because their history was written.
And that's what made it, to me anyway, that's what made Rogue One such a good movie, is it had nothing to do with established characters. Those were in the background. They talked about them. If I'm remembering correctly, we do get that bookend to A New Hope, but otherwise there was nothing. There was no talk. Well, I need to get this message to some young kid punk out on some desert planet out here, and I mean none of that existed. We need to find that General Kenobi dude, and I mean none of that existed, and that's what made that movie very, very cool. Is it was its own, like you say, it was just its own little contained world within the bigger story. And I loved that about that. So there's a prequel done right, I guess you could say.
But at the same time, it didn't take a character and go and step back in time.
Right.
We know they got the plan somehow. They just gave us the story on how. They did not take somebody and step them back in time
Exactly.
and ruin that mystery or that magic that we had for them.
I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one thing that it did do, where you were asking if a prequel improved the character. I think that the final scene with Darth Vader did improve that character because we never got to see Darth Vader scary. I mean, really, truly scary. Where he's going through that hallway. That was a tacked on scene, by the way. That was actually something that they put in at the last minute. But that scene with Darth Vader actually, being a horror character.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys
really improved that character much more than the prequels did. It widened the mystery on that guy.
Can you imagine if we would have had that scene, guys?
Oh, dude!
Without the George Lucas explaining Darth Vader, he'd still be that crazy, you don't mess with the devil.
Yes, dude, exactly.
Whenever I was a kid and it first came out, of course, you're watching Star Wars for the first time. Oh my God, the splendor. TIE fighters, X-wings, everything's great. I never cared for Darth Vader. Darth Vader didn't do anything for me. He wasn't the I never viewed him as the greatest bad guy of all time. He wasn't anything to me. As the movies progressed, he's still okay. Moving on, I was more entranced by the other characters, but in Rogue One, in that final scene when he's walking down the hallway, it's like, oh crap, that was the moment where it's like, why isn't this character, why isn't this portrayal, fleshed out in the prequels? Why didn't we see this side of him? Because he still felt watered down in the prequels. He was still that whiny. Gosh, I don't want to do this. Gosh, I don't want. Been such a meanie. Yeah, shut up. You are not threatening at all. That Darth Vader in that hallway scene would have made my butt pucker. That would have been the moment where I all right, I'm gonna die here. All that other stuff. Nah, I could probably take him. Here it's like, no, this is where I die. This is the end.
I think to sum up, with all this, we will watch it. We will enjoy it.
Sure.
Does the opening idea sound great? No, I'd rather have a Mad Max movie with another story, but I'll watch it, and it'll probably be really good.
And let me just add that having Anya Taylor-Joy as the main character, big thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm excited about her too, actually.
I ever since I saw The Witch, I've been enamored with that young lady. She's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think she's pretty inspired casting, and look, whatever George Miller's got coming up next, I'm very excited about. I mean, Fury Road was insanely good. That I think that it benefited from having maybe 15 or 20 years of development. So it was so dense with stuff that he put in there. I mean, that every one of those characters has a backstory that we never heard anything about.
And we didn't need to.
And no, you're absolutely right. We don't need to hear about that. But if he's inspired by the Furiosa character and he thinks that he's got a good story there, it's going to be better than 90% of the other crap that's out there. So I say, go for it.
There was an interview I read with Miller where he talked about how he didn't like to tell the story of the character. He liked the movie to tell the story of the character. He wanted the movie to be how you learned of this person. And so in that respect, this might be a great addition to the Mad Max universe. But as a prequel in and of itself, I'm just kind of on the fence. Hearing that Anya Taylor-Joy is in it, it's like, all right, here's my money. Just take my money.
writers are told to show, don't tell, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Instead of, putting it out there and handing it to the audience, you can show like a skeleton arm on the side of that war machine where Furiosa sits, and that there's a backstory there about how she lost her arm. That's maybe a good example of showing instead of telling. And particularly in Fury Road, he did a lot of showing, which I think was really cool. All right, well, now I have a little bonus round here where I'm going to ask, what are you watching, reading, or playing right now? So any sort of television shows or movies or video games or board games, whatever you want to talk about. And I'll throw that to you, Scott, first.
All right. So what's sad is I think if we do this often, you're going to ask me this question, and my same shows are always going to be the same thing.
Well, I got that.
Just so everybody knows out there, I started watching Dragon Ball Super. It's 130 episodes, I think, 131 episodes of the anime.
Wow.
I started that like 2 years ago. I just finished that a few weeks ago. I finally wrapped that up. And you would have thought, like, even if I'd have watched one episode a day, I could get through it faster, but I just don't work that way, folks. Anyways, I really enjoyed that. A couple years ago, I went back and read the Dragon Ball actual anime, or the comic books, the manga, and I fell in love with that story and Akira Toriyama's artwork and everything like that. So I had some buddies that told me about this. So I just wrapped up watching Dragon Ball Super, and I made the crazy leap to watching the kind of bastard child of the Dragon Ball universe. So I started watching Dragon Ball GT just recently, watched a few episodes. As for other TV, I don't watch a whole bunch, maybe some South Park, some Bob's Burgers, and some Mike Tyson's Mysteries, which is always great.
Oh my God.
I love that.
So you're the guy.
Oh, you don't like Mike Tyson's Mystery Team? That is amazing. That is amazing. I mean, actually what you have is one great episode and about 3 duds, and then one really like balls in your face episode, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. Anyways, yeah, I'm that guy. As for reading, once this stuff started hitting, I have 50 plus comics because I read probably anywhere between 5 and 10 comics a week on a regular basis. And once all this go hide and stay away from the big scary monster of COVID-19, I haven't read anything until today.
Right.
So I have like 50 comics, but some of those that I'm reading, I don't know if you guys are reading the Jonathan Hickman his new relaunch of the X-Men stuff that happened.
Well, I started that. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, what I read.
Yeah, I believe the House of X #2 of that series, where they gave you a
spoiler alert.
Maura McTaggart is one of the best comics you'll read in the last 20 years, for sure. I just picked
up the graphic novel, so I'm going to be reading all of it too.
No, I'm not going to tell you anything else, but I've been following actually like all the X books, and they come out, and in the back they have kind of a checklist where you could read them in order or you don't have to.
Right.
So I've been reading those. I mean, that's kind of a big deal since I haven't read X-Men in a long time. I would say like I enjoyed the miniseries. When the books started off, I could have took them or got rid of them, but now as they keep kind of going, they've kind of gained some ground. But I haven't read comics because it's like there's no comics published, so I'm gonna have to come back and reread these anyway. So I'm probably gonna wait. Now today, I'm friends with, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah, we can see it.
Do you remember the artist Ron Friends from like the 80s, 90s? He did Electric Superman, Thor, Thunderstrike, and all that. I follow him on Facebook. So
cool.
I've seen him do this Blue Baron character forever on Facebook, and I finally tracked down a store. He does them, I guess, mainly on digital. And on his website, Sit Comics, or I don't know if it's really him or if he's the work for hire, but Sit Comics is the company. and they listed one of our local shops here. And I called them up and said, "Do you have these sitting on your shelf?" And they did. And I went and got some curbside service today. I read issue 1. I mean, it's I enjoyed it, but it's a very, I would say, in the same vein of Spider-Girl, and he was the artist on that too.
Okay.
Of things. It was enjoyable, but it felt like I was reading an 80s or 90s comic that was really meant for a 12 to 15-year-old. But that's fine. I enjoy some of that stuff. It reminded me of the old Impact comics from DC back in the day. So anyways, yeah. I enjoyed it. It was nice to see his art and stuff like that. That's the latest thing I've read. As I could go on forever. I play a lot of board games. I'm a big board game collector. And recently I picked up a game before all this called This War of Mine, which is, I guess, is a video game, like a really brutal, you're trying to survive a war. You're like a citizen trapped in a house, except a war's going on outside and bad crap can happen. And so it's a co-op game where you're playing with your friends and you're just trying to survive. You're going to go look for food and water. You're trying to survive the night because war soldiers could come in there and take all your food after you've collected it, or, do mean things to you that I don't want to talk about. But it's almost a pretty depressing game because sometimes people can your characters can leave, and it has all these situations. It has a rule book that has like a storybook side to it that has over almost 2,000 entries. And a lot of times you can play and draw cards and it'll say like, go to story 1901, and you go to 1901 and your character maybe gets depressed and leaves the group. And, it's really a cool game. I'll just leave it at that because I could talk board games forever. So.
Yeah, and I mean, leave something for the next episode.
Exactly.
We don't have to recount the last 5 years.
The main reason I picked up This War of Mine when all this stuff started was it's been at my shop forever and I've always wanted it. And you can play it solo as well. So I thought I need something to keep busy because I am not a good social distancer. So,
Sean, you're up, buddy.
Oh, as far as playing, I don't do a whole lot of board games. I'm usually on my Xbox. I just finished up playing again Saints Row 4, and with that down, because that's just fun, stupid fun. I got back into the Division 2. I'd started a couple of characters on that, and I play that every now and again. Honestly, I can't get enough of that game. I love that to death. I loved the first one, and this one's been just as interesting and just as fun. As far as reading, the last book I read, or I continue to read, is Dreadstar by Jim Starlin. It's a collected edition that was on
That's Kickstarter. Cool.
And it collected all of the graphic novels and all of the just the early stuff that was published, I believe, independently, and then also through Epic Comics on through to the end of the 6-part miniseries, and the rest of the series, I believe, is supposed to be coming out in 2 more volumes, also on Kickstarter at some point. I'm not sure. They're going to send me an alert, I believe, so I'm looking for that. But yeah, that's where my world is.
All right, I've been watching Star Trek Picard because the CBS offered a month for free, and I thought, hey, that's a pretty good deal. I can definitely watch that. And so I'm about halfway through that, maybe a little bit over halfway, and I'm really enjoying it. I really like the characters. They've got a bunch of new characters. I know people bitched about that because people bitch about everything, but the new characters actually I like quite a bit. I really like 7 of 9, and I like what they did with her on the series. I like the storyline. They're talking about artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of spy stuff going on that has some questions.
It's just not him attending a garden.
It is not that. It's definitely not that.
In the cornfield,
but
number one, help me plant some seeds.
It's definitely not that. And, some people are saying, like, why is he, he's acting like an old man. Spoiler alert, he's an old man. I mean, I don't know exactly what if you wanted him to do mixed martial arts or something, but I mean, he is just the kind of, the centerpiece of the story, and the action and stuff comes from other people. And I think it's an evolution of the character that I like. I don't have a problem with it. I know that there are people, like I said, who are bitching about it, but I'm not going to engage in that until I've seen the whole thing. And then, I will determine whether, the bitching is warranted or not. And most of the time it's not. But for right now, I'm really enjoying it. I like what they're doing. The production value is really good on this show. I think that, and finally, after all of this time, instead of, remaking the old series or looking at, the time before the original series or whatever, we're finally in like the post Voyager era. And it's nice to see kind of what's happening there. And I'm an old Star Trek fan, so I'm enjoying that. And I hope they don't screw it up in the last 3 or 4 episodes.
Not to get on a tangent, but speaking of another franchise that there always should be a decent movie every 3 years is Star Trek. And this Picard thing makes me mad because it's like, why didn't we do this 25 years ago?
Yeah.
20 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean,
right.
Anyways.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad to hear that it's good.
I enjoy it a lot. But like I said, there are a lot of people who are grousing about it. So let me finish it up, and then I'll see if they, manage to, mess it up there at the last minute or something. But through about episode 6 or 7, it's been pretty good as far as I'm concerned. Ironically, Sean's been playing the 2 video games that he mentioned, and I've been doing that too. There's something about Saints Row 4 that is such a blast to play that game. You get to make this character that looks like yourself. And for a game that was originally like a Grand Theft Auto ripoff, they take that kind of concept and they turn you into a superhero, and you run around and you beat the tar out of people. It's just a blast. I mean, I just really enjoy that game. And I also have been playing some Division, the Division 2, and that's a game that I never get tired of, and probably couldn't be more relevant right now, because the whole concept of the game is that they have something called the dollar virus that wipes out a lot of the population. And strangely enough, you're not actually fighting for toilet paper in the Division.
I think they should. I think they should have a character. As you're walking down a street or something, somebody runs out of a store with just handfuls of toilet paper.
Yes, I think that's a great idea. Or maybe a whole faction who are hoarding toilet paper.
Yeah,
or something, and you have to fight them to free up the supply of toilet paper.
When the groups go out and say, "Okay, we're going to go get supplies," they come back with just piles and piles of toilet paper. Oh yeah, hand sanitizer mixed in there.
Of course. All right. Well, we're finally into what I call promo time, and let me just throw it, Scott. We didn't talk about this beforehand, but is there anything that you'd like to promote or tell people about?
This is a brand new audience. I'm Scott Prime. I have done artwork in the past for a Kickstarter board game. I am the co-host with a long-term friend of mine, Steve Kilowagi Campbell. We do a Blood Bowl podcast, and we have for over 7 years now. We're on like episode 102 by the time you see this, and we've had many special episodes. So I think we have.
102. That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, we have like 130 episodes or more. You can find us on iTunes. We are at bothdown.com. Like I said, you can find us on iTunes. It's very Blood Bowl specific, but we don't talk a lot of strategy. I've won my share of tournaments and stuff playing this board game about fantasy football. And but we don't really get into strategy. We really enjoy the what we call the fluff or the role-playing side of it. I look at this board game of Blood Bowl. Some people love it because they get to paint miniatures. Some people love it because of the strategy. I love it for all those things, plus all the background stuff. To me, it's a fantasy sports role-playing game, and we take all the old stories from the old sets of rules and the fluffy stuff for the reason, why we're playing it today, and we talk about that a lot. We also run many tournaments over here in the United States. Blood Bowl is a very popular game all across the world. We have I believe, the biggest one-day tournament record still for like the U.S.
That's crazy.
With over 60 people in our little town of Oklahoma, with only about 5 or 6 people from Oklahoma. So I mean, we had a guy fly over from England this last March, right before all this COVID stuff hit. We've had guys come over from Sweden. I don't want to act like we're a big deal, but the reality is it's really like humbling to find out that, like everybody on every continent has listened to us, because we said like, oh, maybe the Arctic and all these things. Well, we've had somebody say, hey, we're down here and I've listened to your podcast. So it's really, really strange that we reach so many people, and it's more of you're sitting on the couch talking with us. We could have episodes where we never say a harsh word, and then other episodes something ticks us off and we let go on it. But you can find us at bothdown.com is the main way to find us there.
Good. Yeah. Good stuff, man.
Awesome.
All right, Sean, you're up, buddy.
Well, I don't really have anything to promote as of yet. I'm in the midst of trying to reorganize and gather the troops for Rain King Studios to get that back up and going with new projects and new comics, new art, new anything and everything that the four of us want to mess with.
Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show. We're one of the things that you mentioned when you first started this is that was almost exactly 25 years ago that we all got together and started creating and producing and publishing comic books together, which is how we got to know each other. And Scott mentioned the pizza shuttle nights and sitting around and watching music videos back when you could do that.
I miss the box.
Oh my gosh. Talk about the box. Remember those? I think they were called the puppies. And the little song would be like, hey, little lady, why you act so crazy?
Yeah.
We would watch that 100 times because the box was, you called in, you paid
could
for the
force
video.
them to show something. Yeah.
Exactly. You paid $1 or $2 and it was great. Great times.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I spent a small fortune watching the box. I fully admit. A lot of my credit card debt from my early life was probably given up to the box. I would say.
In one way or another, right?
In one way or another. Yeah.
I know Robert's not here because we had some technical difficulties, but Robert's been working on the past couple of years. Bad Candy, his comic. I think you can find him, if I'm correct, on like Robert Henry Art. There you go, right there, Bad Candy. He's been self-publishing. He's been working through his story, going to conventions, really, what would you say, selling his wares, like a little merchant out there. So Robert's been doing that, and you can find him on Facebook or at Bad Candy as well. So,
yeah, speaking to kind of unify this here, you kind of took my deal because I wanted to make sure that Robert got.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I wanted to make sure that Robert got some promotional help from this too. Robert was on earlier in the episode. We lost him, unfortunately. He has produced 3 main issues of the Bad Candy comic, and then another comic which you can see here is called Tasty Treats. The illustration that is here is from Sean, who did one of the covers and also did one of the stories in Tasty Treats that's coming up. and so this is kind of a deal where, Robert's really done good on this. I wish that he had something that was real solid. I believe that I don't have the link, but I believe that you can find Bad Candy on Facebook, like a Facebook page. And I also think that you can find Bad Candy on Instagram, where he posts some stuff.
I think it's Bad Candy Comic.
It's Bad Candy Comic, and I know Robert still has issues to sell.
Yep.
So right now is the time to really support those small guys. So if you're bored and you need something to read, you want a horror comic, Robert has them. So Bad
two of the guys
comic is the page.
Two of the guys that were on this thing tonight have contributed to Bad Candy, and Robert has written this story and has carried a lot of the water for the production, including some layouts and a lot of finishes for the book, as well as covers and just being the publisher too. He's worked very hard on that sort of thing. Sean created the logo for Bad Candy. So again, this is kind of an example of maybe where we're going in the near future. I hope that we can do more projects like this together, and maybe we're talking about doing some projects together, in addition.
Ultimately, what I wanted to do was, there were a lot of projects that I wanted to produce, just stories that I wanted to tell, characters I wanted to draw, so on and so forth. And for years, I kept looking for, after we all kind of went our separate ways, I kept trying to come up with an idea for a publishing banner, something to publish all these ideas under. And probably towards the end of the year, I guess, end of the year last year, it just struck me like a rock to the skull. I was like, we've already created it. It was ranking. I just need to update it and see if the guys want to get involved in it. So ever since then, I've been throwing every effort I can into getting a website going to promote the project. Getting just set up a Facebook page that is still in the early development. I'm doing everything. Thank you, Kat. I'm doing everything I can to try to. She has such sharp claws. Oh, I love her so much. She's there were so many projects that I wanted to do, and so I decided, what better way than under the banner of Rain King, and so there you go. That's where I'm at with that. Unfortunately, I've spent all my time trying to get the website up and going, that I haven't actually been able to work on any projects yet. But as soon as I get this aspect of it, I can refocus on doing the artwork. And yes, later on down the road, I'd love for everybody to here to participate. And Scott, I know you've done a bunch of illustrations for some characters. Love to see that stuff up there under your own banner, under your own portfolio, and maybe get you involved in doing some comic book art again if you were interested. Kevin, I know he would like to do some stuff down the road, so on and so forth. Dirk would love to do some work. He and I have talked about doing some work on a original character of his, and maybe hopefully this would be an arena that we could all promote ourselves and get some stuff out there.
The comic book business is very different than it used to be. Back in the olden days, we would do
the before times, as I call them.
The before times, yes, exactly. We would either hand letter, or we would print out lettering and then we would paste it to the page.
Yep.
There was no there was no coloring because we couldn't afford to print that stuff. We had to come up with, what was it, $2,000-$3,000 to get a full official print run done, and then run it through Diamond Comics. We didn't know whether they were going to take it or not. And, everything now is different. And it's a shame that we didn't have the ability to do the things then that we do now. And I think that, I'm seeing the potential of doing stuff digitally where I never have had that opportunity. I obviously know and understand doing promotion better than ever before. In fact, I'm paid to help people with promotion now, so I understand that better. And you don't have to have a print run of you can do a print run of comics the old-fashioned way, but you can also do print on demand, or you can offer it entirely as a digital product. So you don't have to have that $2,000-$3,000 unless you want to do that. Well, and you can crowdfund stuff. So you don't have to come up with the, onerous amount of money to produce these things. You can really do them, if you have a good concept and you're working hard and producing decent artwork, then you can also, look to the public to help you produce these things.
Well, what's crazy is, like I was telling you, that I got the Blue Baron today. It's a $3.99 comic. It's 64 pages, and it's on like really good paper. I mean, it's on good paper. I'm like, it might have Ron Friend's art, but this is not flying off the shelf because we don't carry this at my regular comic shop that I'm at. So maybe publishing or maybe whoever has this company has a lot of money, but maybe publishing's a little bit different than the world we were used to.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I know that Sean and I have paid attention to some people who are running. I mean, I will mention Jake Parker, for example, who gets hundreds of thousands of dollars for his product before he produces it. So not only does he make, he has plenty of money to do the print run and do it exactly the way he wants to, but he also has extra money to live on while he's producing this thing, beforehand, and he can do it exactly the way that he wants to. And he's not alone. There are a lot of people that are making, and, obviously not everyone is making, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, but, running these Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaigns can absolutely pay off if you have the right product. And that's very different from the way it used to be.
For sure.
When we did Rough Cut, we literally got together a coalition of people and paid into that product to get out the first couple of issues. So we kind of crowdfunded our own project,
right?
Essentially. So it's very different now. And, look, I'm a much better artist, I think, than I was 25 years ago. And I think you guys are. So I'm, very excited by the prospects.
Nice.
All right. Well, as far as my promotion, I think that, I have a lot of things that I could promote, but I'm trying to kind of keep things a certain way. So what I will say in this case is that what I would like to do is encourage everyone to go to Quora and join up at the Taskforce Geek page. There's the link to that, Quora.com /Q/Taskforce Geek. You can see that there are 336,000 people that are following that group right now. That's why I really wanted to do this, because having that sort of crowd is really cool. We took all of our subjects directly from this page, and we will do so in the future. And also, in addition to that, I want to say that you can follow me on there. So if you're interested in that, there is my address, which is Quora.com /profile/Dirk-Hooper, and you can follow me on there. I will answer questions and stuff for everyone. So guys, do you have anything that you want to add to anything that we've talked about?
I I think we are long-winded enough for this episode.
We certainly are. Oh my God, we went twice as long as I expected, and that's okay.
I mean, but honestly, we were. How should I say this? It was probably actually really refreshing and good for all of our psyches. Everybody's crammed in their house.
I agree.
They're on lockdown. We all kind of were single guys that got together with a dream, a vision.
All true.
We probably ate a lot of pizza and talked a lot of BS.
So much pizza.
But we were always there for each other. And even though life drifted us like in different directions, the magical thing about long-term great friends is when you reunite, no time feels like they've slipped. You can just pick up a conversation, you can make an old joke, and it's not awkward. Nothing's awkward, and that's what this is.
That's so true.
And that's why we only can go through half our questions here, and we can just keep gabbing because we all enjoy doing this.
Yeah.
And we enjoy talking and hearing each other. So, you probably need to just only ask us one or two questions every time.
I know.
But other than that,
I skipped 2 questions, so.
But we can get to those. I mean, there's still time.
Yeah.
So, no, there's nothing to add. It was a great time, and you guys were surprised because we said no cussing. I'm the only guy that didn't cuss.
You're right.
I mean, surprisingly,
You're
I'm the
right.
guy who you didn't think was going to make it, but I made it.
Hey, Scott, that's a really great way to wrap this up, and you did a good job there. And by the way, both of you did a great job, and I appreciate also Robert joining in. So thank you all for being on this episode, and I'm really looking forward to getting to the next episode with you guys.
All right, sounds great. Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, before we go, I want to mention to everyone that we're looking for guests for Taskforce Geek. If you like this and you think maybe you'd like to join in on this, and you're interested, then please contact me for now at dirk@sexynetworking.com. We're looking for a diverse crowd, so particularly it'd be nice to have some women involved in this. So don't be shy. Please, contact me there or get in touch with me on Quora or whatever you want to do. As long as you have a pretty good, a decent connection and you're okay with appearing on video, that's definitely going to be part of it. Then we'd love to have you on this group. We really want to add to the guests from and mix things up from time to time. Thanks to everyone for watching this. Please leave a like and share this wherever you see it. It makes a huge difference. So for everyone here, for Scott, for Robert, and Sean, this is Dirk Hooper saying, dream hard.